AI has the power to automate. But if it's using untrusted data, can you trust the results? Your business doesn't just need AI, it needs the right AI for your business. Introducing Watson X, a platform designed to multiply output by tailoring AI to your needs. When you Watson X your business, you can train, tune, and deploy AI, all with your trusted data. Let's create the right AI for your business with Watson X. IBM, let's create.
Tell me about the 1990s, because I feel like it was one of the most, I may be dating myself, but I feel like the 90s was a great era to be living in. What did you see in that time when you were working with young people? Like, what did you see the need of? What did young people need in the 90s far as from a technology perspective in order to do these IT showcases? What type of training, what type of skills, what type of mentorship? Because now technology is at our fingertips. Young people have technology everywhere now. What did you see that was needed back then in the 90s?
Very, very eerily similar is exactly what's happening today. What we saw was the industry was transforming itself, because this was when we were starting to see the graphical user interfaces. You're starting to see Windows evolve. You're starting to see new operating systems come on board, like OS2 and NetWare. You're starting to see more data and hardware and software connecting, connectivity.
Right.
But you also saw where the paradigm shift was how it became more ubiquitous now, where everybody's desktop was now being connected.
Right.
Which is a military occupational specialty. And I became a data systems officer. So we went to computer sciences school, which is also in Quantico.
Okay.
During that time on active duty, I was a software quality assurance officer. And I also went to Headquarters Marine Corps. I also spent a couple of years in Manpower, which is our human resources branch, for enlisted assignments. So I ran the computer science model, or basically the computer model for enlisted assignments. That's where we assign Marines overseas, OCONUS and CONUS, for their next duty station. So we also had other assignments. So for a couple of years, I was the Marine Corps Marathon.
Welcome, Mr. Carter. How you doing?
Very well, ma'am. Thank you so much.
I'm so excited to talk a little bit more about the history and the legacy of your amazing organization. I want to go and dive a little bit deeper into knowing more about some of the milestone achievements, events. Just walk us through a little bit of, let's go down memory lane.
Sure.
Because I know you guys have been doing this for what, 50 years?
50 years.
50 years is a long time.
It is, many moons. So thank you for having us. So BDPA was started in 1975 as Black Data Processing Associates. The late Earl A. Pace Jr. and the late David Wimberly started the organization in Philadelphia. And again, the organization, very similar to the movie Hidden Figures, the gentleman felt the need for young African Americans who were starting their companies to support the banking industry and to help the banks with the electronic funds transfer and automated clearinghouse, or ACH. Very similar to the movie Hidden Figures, they got together, formed the organization, and the Philadelphia chapter was incorporated in 1976. It was from that point the other chapters came on board. We had Cleveland, we had Washington, D.C. Norman Mays had just retired from the United States Army out of Fort Meade. He was helping the organizations with computer security. We didn't call it ComSec or InfoSec back then, but in essence, Norm stood up the Cleveland chapter and the Washington, D.C. chapter.
Okay.
So those are the significant milestones that really took BDPA from concept to the chapters.
Okay.
And most of our earlier chapters, you'll find, are all co-located with the 12 Federal Reserve districts.
Interesting.
So you have the big chapters. If you have a dollar bill in your pocket right now, you look at the number in your dollar bill, that number identifies up to 12 different cities or the Federal Reserve districts where that dollar bill was printed or minted. And a lot of the banks and the banking systems then had mainframe computers. So our earlier members of BDPA in the mid-70s, many of them were co-located with those 12 cities. From Boston, which was number one, New York was number 2, Philadelphia number 3. That's how the organization really got its foundation in its formative years in the mid-70s. So virtually all of our members were mainframe programmers, and most of them knew COBOL.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about that later on when we get to Y2K.
Okay.
Because Y2K, for the audience, it's the year 2000 or 2000. And in the late 1990s that we touched on, we had a significant requirement or need to help rewrite and modify COBOL language or some of the coding in many of the systems so that we do not have systems just shutting down or the software not working because it didn't recognize the new year format.
It's so interesting because I remember that there were actual federal government systems that were using COBOL and Fortran, and they were trying to modernize those legacy applications. It's amazing to know that in history, you know, in the computing history, that people actually use those technologies. Would you say that it was predominantly women or men, or was it a mix? Like, you know, as far as the members, like, you know, could you kind of walk us through like the demographics of?
Yes, it was still predominantly men.
Okay.
Very almost like the movie Hidden Figures.
Right.
Because, you know, we still have not had enough organizations like ours to help promote that to young men and women.
Yep.
In the communities that we serve. But the challenge is still there. And so and that goes back to even some of the funding challenges that we have today. The mission will always get funded. No matter what the climate is or geopolitical headwinds we may have,
right,
the mission will still get funded. We still, even today, we still need sometimes COBOL programmers
right,
to modify systems, because anytime the government wants to send out a lot of cash to your community, the program has to be adjusted to do that.
Right.
And it's not an easy task that one may think. You just can't cut and paste and just hit send.
Right.
You have to do there's a lot of processes that have to be undertaken to do that and do it well.
Right. That's amazing. I want to know a little bit more as we walk through history and we go down the next era. The next era was Y2K.
So Y2K, that was basically, we had a lot of systems for, especially written in COBOL, a lot of times many of the programmers had an end date, and it was all nines, 999. So, but we did that 20 years, 30 years before 2000, because somebody else will fix it back then. Well, all of a sudden, year 2000 showed up right on our doorstep.
Right. And
even some of the earlier testing occurred probably of September of 1999, that year, prior to the year 2000, because September had all nines as well. It was the 9th month, so you had September of that year, 1999, or September 9th. However people developed their programs with a series of nines or 999, some of the testing occurred then. But once we hit the year 2000 and we saw that nothing was shutting down, the world wasn't collapsing.
Was it coming to an end?
Wasn't coming in, right. Everything worked out extremely well. But that was one situation where the governments worldwide work together to actually solve a problem in industry. And even in our organization, a lot of people were called back out of retirement. Some have left COBOL, went to develop my career path. I was a Lotus Notes developer.
Oh, I remember Lotus Notes.
Or we went over to Domino.
That was my very first time using email service in a government environment with Lotus Notes.
That was my first certification, Principal Certified Lotus Professional, PCLP. And I had several projects.
Before those Outlook days.
Absolutely. So I had several projects with Lotus in Cambridge. Cambridge, Massachusetts, and IBM acquired the company, so I had several projects there. But these were all software and systems that many of us left long after we left mainframes.
Right.
So those were some of the milestones we had early at that time, and then Y2K was something that evolved as well.
You know, Y2K is a very interesting era within tech because I think it taught professionals to think about the future. It taught us to think about scaling and technical debt, and how if we only program for a certain era or period of time, what's going to happen when that period of time comes to an end, right? And the actual development of those systems can actually do the next thing it needs to do for like 2000. And so I think it's very important for, I guess, you know, me being in the development arena for such a long time, to always future-proof your applications and systems. But it's hard, you know, when you're working with certain technologies though.
But again, our industry, that's the one thing I think that's common with us, is that we know there's going to be change.
Right.
And we've always pivoted.
Right.
There's always going to be a pivot. So it's not for the weak, you know, not for the weak.
But we're gonna figure it out.
We'll figure it out. I mean, that's the excitement of BDPA. Now, along those lines, one of the things that I think it goes back even just prior to Y2K, we in the mid '90s, we went to the internet, the World Wide Web.
Yep.
And we launched BDPA.org in 1996 at the Marriott Marquis in Atlanta.
All right.
In 1996. Silicon Graphics, or SGI, was our sponsor, as well as Bell South. So this is probably, we'll make a movie about this one day, or at least it'll be in our next book, the BDPA story. But we were one of the first, if not the first organization to actually have T1 lines provisioned for a conference in Atlanta. And it was very exciting because, you know, the technicians want to know, well, who's this organization ordering a T1 line? Because at the time they were transitioning from ISDN for multiple communicating, and they said, well, who wants a T1 line at the hotel? So the funny part about it was is that when we met the technicians, they looked like us. They're African American technicians. They were stunned that an organization like ours had the audacity, the gall to ask for a T1 line. And we were, of course, pleasantly surprised that the people that were provisioning our lines also were African American. So very, very unique experience in Atlanta in 1996. So the funny part about this segment was prior to the conference, we were still using bulletin board systems, or BBSs.
Okay.
And we had a regional conference in Richmond, and we spent almost the entire conference trying to figure out why we should go to the World Wide Web, why should we pivot, and as they said, the rest is history. We ultimately did that, but we still had that discussion because we were communicating with each other throughout the country using bulletin board systems, or BBSs. And once we resolved that, we decided to move forward with launching our website, BDPA.org, in 1996.
I can only imagine what web technology looked like in 1996 versus today.
Well, you had, I think Mosaic was one of the first browsers.
Yeah.
And then other browsers came along. But again, our whole thrust was to make sure that our audience and communities could actually get to us,
Sure.
get the information that they needed, and that we were lockstep with industry. That's the main value, I think, as a takeaway for BDPA, is that our members, we want to make sure that our members are in lockstep with industry. We maintain our continuity with our mission partners with industry, and again, our strategic triad with public sector, private sector, and academia.
So are there any key milestones or events you want to, after Y2K, kind of bring us up to, the COVID era in the 2000s you want to kind of touch on? Any other additional events that we should be like, exciting things that happen?
So in the 2020s, COVID was probably a blessing in disguise.
It definitely was a disguise when it first happened.
So we were scheduled to have an in-person conference with the Air Force Research Lab, as well as BDPA in Atlanta. It was a joint conference for the HBCU Collider.
Okay.
And we were basically, the Collider was a format that the United States Air Force used to bring industry together, almost like an industry day.
Okay.
Or an advanced programming briefing in the industry. The Army and Marine Corps, we call it APBIs. So that did not happen. So we had to pivot immediately to a virtual conference. So that is when all the virtual platforms started to evolve. That is when companies like Zoom. And we had Microsoft Teams was evolving. WebEx from Cisco.
Yeah.
So we had a multitude of sharing platforms that evolved. And that, for many organizations, saved a lot of dollars because we did not have food and beverage costs or transportation costs.
Correct, yeah.
So that was kind of like the blessing in disguise. You didn't have to absorb those costs for transportation and hospitality and food and beverage. But still, it allowed us to leverage our information that we shared. Also, it opened up new career paths for those in virtual planning and virtual conferencing and telecommunications.
What I love about that era is that you could reach so many people through those technologies.
That's correct.
Versus in-person events that only people know about through word of mouth, and marketing and bringing a bunch of people into a virtual environment can be very impactful, in this era. So I'm a big fan of all of those technologies. Definitely, I'm a Zoom girl.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so.
And our next president, Ms. Stephanie Gloucester, her administration will be able to take us into the next generation.
All right.
And just like we alluded to earlier, our challenges, which are opportunities, will be in artificial intelligence, post-quantum cryptography, and cybersecurity is not going to go away.
I love how you framed that. Challenges are really opportunities.
That is correct.
I like to always think that any type of disadvantage, there is an advantage in all disadvantages. And I think we just have to be mindful of our mindset, right? So I truly enjoyed this interview with you. I mean, I learned so much about the history of this amazing organization. There's so many things that we could have gone all day and talked about so many other additional events and milestones and achievements and accomplishments. Is there any closing words you want to leave the audience about, what's coming up in the future, or just any closing words of encouragement for people that are trying to get into artificial intelligence, all of the future trending technologies?
I do, yes. You got this, and what I mean by that is one of the metaphors that I always use, especially when we have career day with some of the kids and students,
yes,
even those in industry, and I've shared this with my predecessors, you have to look at Noah's Ark as a metaphor. Mm-hmm. So for us, NOAA is NOA, your neighborhood organization and associations. So work with organizations like BDPA to help your community evolve. The ARC, or ARC, is an Acquisition Resource Center.
Okay.
So in your Acquisition Resource Centers, you have careers and contracts, or careers and grants. Leverage your community organizations for access to information that will help you find and identify those grants, those contracts, those sub-awards. And then many people say, well, what about the flood, Perry? Where's the flood? Well, for us, in the conversation we've had, that flood is data. There's a lot of data coming your way, and it's exponentially increasing in every facet, every industry. So make sure you have a good ARC, make sure you have the best Noah you can get for your ARC, and monetize that data. And
Monetize the
monetize
data.
The data. Yes, ma'am. So those are my closing words.
Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you so much for spending time with me and walking us through the history of this amazing organization. I mean, the legacy and the lives that have been impacted will just continue to live on and on and on and on. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Kanika. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Now, when any department goes out into the community, we're able to hear the positive responses. And that is a great feeling to know that what we're doing is affecting and impacting the community. In the past, we've heard negative responses about the city being unclean, there's a lot of trash on the ground, or the police, we never see them.
It was important for our residents to feel as though that government was going to be responsive.
People were relying on a 9 to 5 being able to contact about any issues that they had.
We put together a very innovative app that gave our residents access.
IBM assisted the City of Seat Pleasant to incorporate Watson into the My Seat Pleasant app. Any resident who has a question that they want to ask about the city on a 24-hour basis can go into the app and click on Watson to ask it a question.
We had a tree fall, and instead of having to call City Hall, I just went and used the chat and said that there's a tree falling in the middle of the street, and they sent Public Works out to get it for me.
I've used it to report potholes that are in the street. I've used it to see what's going on in the city.
No matter where our Public Works director is, no matter where our employees are, they're able to log in because it is on IBM Cloud and get the service request in real time and respond, in a quick and efficient manner.
It allows them to get to us sooner. On a weekend doesn't matter because it comes through, I'm gonna get it. So I love it. I don't see how we ever did without it.
When I think about BDPA, I think about legacy. Legacy is the lasting impact that exists when you're no longer here. Legacy is not about individual accomplishments. It's not about individual success. So when I think about BDPA, I think about it providing an opportunity for Black professionals in IT to create impact on students, on entry-level professionals, and on executives, from the classroom to the boardroom.
Being here at BDPA Con 50 in Atlanta, celebrating half a century of innovation, is humbling and it's energizing. The Tech Dispute was born from a simple but powerful ideal. Technology moves faster, but conflicts tend to slow it down. Whether it's AI contracts, IP conflicts, software disagreements, we built a platform to resolve tech issues smarter, faster, and fairer. Winning first place is not just a personal milestone, it's a validation that our mission matters. Thank you to the judges, my fellow innovators in the competition, and BDPA community for believing in what we're building.
50 years is quite some time, and the organization has flourished, not just lasted, not just survived, but it has thrived, and it makes me very proud and thankful.
It's important to understand, why we do what we do. Right? Your value has to be driven through your mission statement, and then through that mission statement, you have to execute. There's too many organizations that talk a good talk. So here at Prolifics, we stay very quiet, and we do the things in the back end. So this year, what I wanted to do is make sure we put our talent and our money where our mouths are, right? So we said, instead of giving the winner cash, what we're gonna do is give him the equivalent that I charge all of the big companies that I work with, and give them some of my best guys to put on their project. And we're gonna give them $8,000 of value in those hours, because we want to see the project open.
As I walked around today, seeing workshops on AI and robotics competitions, seeing our young people talking about things on the cutting edge of the industry and knowing that they are, in fact, the future. So for me, it's not just a question of looking back that we've lasted it for 50 years, but look at where we may be going.
I joined BDPA in 1976. So from that time forward, BDPA has grown significantly. During my tenure and the presidents behind me, the organization grew to approximately 50 chapters around the country. In other words, BDPA was in every major city in the United States. We've grown as the technology has changed, so I've seen BDPA have a major role in the advancement of that technology. In the future, I would like to see BDPA provide think tank contributions with ideas and strategies for our lawmakers to follow, as well as continue to open doors for the youth who want to participate in the field of information technology.
As a young Black woman in tech, you know, you have to be strong, you have to be a voice to those, and that's why I love working with students. We need someone to be there, to be an example to them, and that's what I love about BDPA. As we continue to grow with the different programs, we move to a younger audience, and I really hope to be here another 50 years involved in the organization, and I love what it is all about.
I enjoyed my opportunities that I have with BDPA, and I look forward to creating even more legacy as time goes forward, because I want it to last beyond me. Congratulations, BDPA, on your 50th anniversary, and congratulations on an awesome conference.